construction industry is, I think it's the third biggest contributor to GDP in the country. Employs about 1 million people or more. So if you stop residential construction because there's a crisis of confidence, that has a big flow-on effect to the economy and to lots of people who are working. And I don't think it is all broken.
As Australia's construction industry rushes to meet the boom in high-rise living, it's facing some complex challenges.
Sooner or later we're going to have a fire where somebody is killed unless we replace this combustible cladding.
Thousands of buildings across the nation have facades made of aluminium composite cladding.
Just looking at them, there's no way of telling if they're the grade that are combustible. You have to test before you can tell.
Melbourne's high-rise cladding scandal is catching out more and more innocent buyers.
Buildings fitted with combustible cladding have become so dangerous they may be virtually uninsurable.
Taxpayers will foot the bill to fix Victoria's cladding crisis.
Since the problem was exposed in 2017, the Victorian government has put $600 million towards a project to identify and replace dangerous cladding and has vowed to pursue the dodgy builders who installed it. Other states are less advanced, including the one with the most high-rise developments.
In New South Wales, there's not 1 cent that's come forward from the state government to help property owners. There's no public register. We don't even have a set of guidelines that identifies what property owners need to do to make their buildings safe.
Despite no requirement by law, this nursing home south of Sydney has taken action, paying to replace dangerous cladding.
This is a problem created by bad government, by deregulation and privatisation. And that's why I believe government has to be part of the solution.
New research in Victoria provided to 7:30 reveals the emotional and financial toll of the cladding crisis. Concerns include high insurance premiums, time off work, a shortage of cladding experts and the cost of replacement. Some had put off retirement. Others expressed concern that neighbours may be at risk of suicide.
The issue with cladding is there are some cladding products which are actually very legitimate, safe and acceptable to be used in certain circumstances and are cheap, so it's good for industry to use them. But in other circumstances they're completely unsafe and inappropriate. So do you ban them completely, or do you have a more complex system that allows them to be used where they're safe to be used and not where they're not? And that's where we sit today.
It's not just cladding causing anxiety for owners of apartments. There's been another disturbing trend in construction: poor temperature control.
Developers don't give a rat's ass about the environment. They give a rat's ass about making money and maximising the square meterage of their real estate space.
Forward, Sandy.
ALP member Steve Hurd is visually impaired and has a guide dog and a pet dog. There are a range of problems in his Melbourne apartment, including overheating, even in winter.
There you go. It'll get about 10 degrees warmer than the outside temperature in this apartment. Even at 14 or 15 degrees at midday, you have to turn the air conditioning on. Otherwise it gets too hot, particularly for our dogs. The dogs start puffing a lot and they lie on the tiles.
Party time, boys.
The issues around the overheating are to do with the roof, which is a flat steel decking. There's also a lack of insulation in the building and no eaves on the balconies.
An apartment building facing west can quickly get over 50 degrees inside without air conditioning.
Of particular concern during summer are curtain wall constructions like this. They have a sheer glass facade and no balconies.
The curtain wall system is optimised for time and cost, which is the mantra of construction.
Research revealed to 7:30 by construction scientist Chris Jensen points to serious limitations for residential high-rise living, with a total reliance on air conditioning.
Well, we have the situation for the potential perfect storm, and that's the west-facing small apartment. It's fully glazed, limited shading, if any, and limited ventilation as well. So the apartment can overheat very quickly.
Steve and the other apartment owners took action against their builder in the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal over multiple defects. But the company declared itself insolvent just before the matter was due to be heard.
As a person who's blind, you see the very best and the very worst of humanity in your life. So what these people have done doesn't surprise me in one way, but it disappoints me, and it should disappoint all Australians. And I think we need to act in such a way politically as to make sure these people can't get planning applications if they do this sort of thing.
One thing that really needs to be done is that states and territories looking at ways that owners and owners corporations, or stratas, as it's all different terminology in every state and territory, can commence proceedings against the builder.
Building defects consultant Sahil Basan believes there's a lack of action against builders who do the wrong thing.
There should be some appropriate enforcement. There should be fines handed out. There should be licences revoked.
So I think the most important thing is that we put the consumer at the forefront of all consideration and discussion. That will help drive better building outcomes and better accountability.
Architect Kathleen Loosby heads a group of industry stakeholders, proposing a range of regulatory changes to improve quality and accountability, including the registration of everyone on site.
At the moment, it's only architects in New South Wales that are registered. Engineers don't need to be registered. Project managers don't need to be registered. Any of the building designers don't need to be registered at all. So there is no process for making sure that they're checked.
No issue with enforcement of regulations and no issue with additional scrutiny, but I'm conscious of broad brush additional regulation that puts some burden of cost on time on the whole industry.
Multiplex CEO John Flecker isn't convinced more rules are the answer.
In one sense, I would say that we're self-regulating. You know, it is more expensive for us to go back and fix defects after completion than to get it right the first time.
A series of independent reports have made recommendations to improve the industry, but implementation is at different stages across the country.
Buildings should be built in a way which ultimately minimises major defects. There is a lot that can be learnt from Opal Tower and from what we're seeing in the surrounding New South Wales towers, and we need to learn from those lessons so that people don't go through what we have gone through.
The towers in Sydney which made the headlines after major defects are now at different stages. Most residents are back in the Opal Tower, but owners at Mascot Towers, which was evacuated in June, have no idea when their building will be safe for occupation.
This isn't an isolated incident, Tracy. There are thousands of Opal Towers and Mascots out there.
Mistakes can happen, and we wish they didn't. I think there are many ways that can be done and are being done to make that harder and harder to fall through the cracks, but I couldn't tell you there won't be another Opal.
I think people have learnt something from the problems we've had up till now, but that still leaves a massive overhang of problems to fix. So there's two issues really. One is making sure that buildings are built correctly in the future, and also figuring out how to fix the ones that have already been built incorrectly.
What advice would you give to a friend who was thinking of buying an apartment?
I'd say don't buy a new apartment. The risks are too great. The situation as to consumer protection is too uncertain, and we know that a lot of these buildings have defects.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.